It's one of the most common, biggest mistakes that so many people make after a toxic relationship. I think the majority of you would agree with the fact that leaving a toxic relationship is difficult. Whether you're the one that left or you were discarded, it doesn't matter. Either way, it's painful. Oftentimes we realize that we're left with a huge hole inside of us. Kind of like that. And that hole is very painful because it's full of loneliness. It's full of feeling unworthy, not good enough. And so it's an intense amount of pain inside of us. And there's nothing that any of us want to do more than not feel that pain. So we try to heal or overcome all of these powerful emotions, and we do it the wrong way. It's one of the most common, biggest mistakes that so many people make after a toxic relationship. We don't want to feel this pain. We don't want to feel this loneliness. We don't want to feel so unworthy. So we start looking for someone else to provide us with those feelings. Someone else says, Michelle, you're valuable. And all of a sudden, I'm valuable because I'm being validated by someone else. Therefore, I feel valuable. The problem with that is the second that person doesn't see value in me, I suddenly don't see value in me. And that hole comes back again. The danger is that toxic people like narcissists, sociopaths, and even borderlines can spot that hole in us from a really long distance away. And they provide exactly what we think we need to fill that hole. They become exactly what we have been dying to feel inside. We have been dying to feel loved, cared about, seen, adored for our individuality. We have been longing for somebody to see value in us, and here it is. The problem with that is they give it to us, but you guys know how that ends, right? They give it to us and then they take it away. And then we have this hole still in us while we're in the relationship with this toxic person. Why don't we feel that hole? Because we're so busy chasing those emotions that they gave us in the beginning. We're so busy chasing them that we don't realize that we got into that relationship, that hole is still there, but we're so busy dealing with the abuse of the relationship that we don't realize it. And then the cycle continues on and on again. The reason we find ourselves repeating this mistake over and over again after toxic relationships is because it's easier. It's easier to look outside of ourselves for what we think we need, whether it's value, self-value, love, respect, care, company. We look outside of ourselves for those things because that's what we were taught our whole life. We were taught external validation. If we're lonely, we need somebody else. That's what we've been taught. If we don't feel valued, we need somebody else to see the value in us. Therefore, we'll feel value. It's constantly dependent on someone else. So when we're taking that path to fill this hole inside of ourselves, we do that because it's familiar. It's how we've had to be our whole life. We've had to, or we've learned how to have external validation all the time. So it's familiar. It's also easier because when we're seeking external validation to fill our hole inside and we're constantly trying to get it from other people, we're so busy seeking it that we don't feel the pain as intensely. We're so busy trying to make toxic relationships work that we don't realize where the pain is really coming from and what we can do about it. And ultimately, it is less painful. Sort of. This is kind of like a double-edged sword because we think it's less painful to get what we need from others, because if we were to try to do it ourselves, that means we have to come face to face with a lot of painful emotions, and that scares us. The thought of facing our pathological loneliness inside, the shame that we feel that fills us within of feeling as if we're not enough, to come face to face with the loneliness of not only having no one else care the way we needed it, but to realize that somewhere along the line, we stopped caring for ourselves. And we started treating ourselves with the same abandonment that our caregivers gave us, which is why it becomes pathological loneliness, because we're not even there for ourselves. For some people to face those emotions, it's terrifying. It provokes an intense amount of pain. It takes us back to our original wounds from so long ago, wounds that were so overpowering to us as children that we buried them deep in our psyche. The problem is that they keep showing up in our decisions, in our way of going about filling this hole. We keep repeating the same patterns without realizing it, when the truth is the key to avoid making the same mistake over and over again is to not get what we need from others. That's extra. When other people give it to us, that's extra. That's bonus. But we don't need it for our survival when we can generate it within ourselves. The key to filling the hole is not to externally have somebody else validate your value as a person. The real way is to find that value from within, to learn how to generate self-value, to learn how to see ourselves as enough, just the way we are. We learn how to stop abandoning ourselves, and we show up for ourselves, and we fill that hole within. When we can do that, that's when the real deep healing takes place. Because it's not just about identifying toxic people. It's not just about avoiding toxic people or eliminating them from our life. It's about healing what toxic people damaged a long time ago in each one of us. And when we take the time to do that, that's when we feel whole. That's when we feel complete, fulfilled. That's when we feel truly enough and valuable. So if you want to know how to do that, watch my next videos where I'm going to talk about shadow work and how to integrate the pieces of yourself that were rejected wrongly as a child, and how without realizing it, we began to reject those pieces of ourselves as adults. We're going to talk about that, all with the goal of reaching the best version of ourselves, reaching true happiness that's generated from within. It's not something given to us from someone else.